A legacy is a beautiful thing, but only if it survives.
Glad you're making friends, honey.
Dutton Ranch premieres tomorrow, and before we even get to watch episode 1, before Beth picks up that cowboy hat, before Rip says the line that is already all over social media, before we see what South Texas looks like through Beth Dutton's eyes, I already know this premiere is going to break me, and I think you already know it too, because that trailer, that single scene in the trailer, Beth standing in a Texas ranch house holding John Dutton's cowboy hat, looking at it the way you look at something that used to belong to someone who is never coming back, and saying, I miss him, and Rip answering, we brought the best part of your father with us. I honestly watched that 30 seconds 4 times, and every single time it hit exactly the same way. Let's talk about why that moment matters so much. What it means for Beth and Rip's story in South Texas. What this show is actually carrying forward from Yellowstone, and why premiere might be the most emotionally loaded first episode this franchise has ever produced. First, what we know is going to happen in that opening scene, because the trailer showed us enough to understand what the show is doing before it says a single word of actual story. Beth and Rip are in Texas. They left Montana, they left the Yellowstone Ranch, they left everything that carries John Dutton's name carved into it. And the very first thing the show does, before we meet the villain, before we see the land, before the conflict begins, is show us what they brought with them, a cowboy hat, a photograph. The physical objects that connect Beth to a father she spent 5 seasons fighting beside and loving in the complicated way that only Beth Dutton can love anyone. And I honestly think the choice to open the entire show with that moment, rather than an action sequence or a landscape shot or a villain introduction, tells us everything about what Dutton Ranch is actually trying to be. It is not trying to replicate Yellowstone. It is trying to carry something forward from it. And what it is carrying forward is John. Now, here is what makes this even more interesting when you think about Beth specifically. Because the John and Beth relationship across 5 seasons of Yellowstone was never simple. It was fierce and protective, and sometimes brutal, and always completely central to who Beth was as a person. John Dutton shaped Beth in ways that both made her extraordinary and broke her simultaneously. She spent 5 seasons fighting for him, for his land, his legacy, his survival, while also carrying wounds that came directly from the choices he made as a father. And now he is gone, and she is in Texas, and she is holding his hat, and she says, I miss him. Not I love him, not I fought for him, I miss him. And that word, miss, is the most human and uncomplicated thing Beth Dutton has ever said out loud. And Rip's answer is everything. We brought the best part of your father with us, because Rip Wheeler has always been the person who understood John Dutton in a specific way that nobody else in that family could. John took Rip in when he was a broken teenager with nowhere to go, gave him purpose, gave him a place, and Rip has spent 20 years honoring that by being exactly the kind of man John believed he could become. So when Rip tells Beth, we brought the best part of your father with us, he is not just comforting her. He is telling her that John Dutton's values, his standards, his belief in what a person owes the land and the people they love, all of that came to Texas with them, in Rip himself, in Beth herself, in everything they built together across 5 seasons. And then there is Carter, Beth and Rip's adopted son, the troubled teenager they chose to take in and are now raising as their own in a Texas ranch house, 1,000 miles from where that story started. And I want to be very clear about this. Carter's bond is with Beth and Rip entirely. They are his family. They are the people who chose him and kept choosing him when it would have been easier not to. And watching Carter exist in this new Texas life, watching him grow under the specific kind of love and pressure that Beth and Rip provide, is going to be one of the most quietly important threads of this entire season. Because Carter becoming a man under their roof is Beth and Rip becoming the family they always deserved to have. Now, what is waiting for them in South Texas? Because they did not leave one war behind to find peace. They left one war behind to find a different one. Beulah Jackson, played by Annette Bening, owns the rival ranch in Rio Paloma, and Beth herself describes her as a grizzly in Gucci. And I want to sit with that description for a second because it is extraordinary, not just funny. Extraordinary because a grizzly in Gucci is not someone you underestimate. It is someone who uses elegance as camouflage for something genuinely dangerous underneath. And that sounds to me like the first opponent Beth Dutton has faced in this franchise, who is actually built to match her. And that trailer closing line, "A legacy is a beautiful thing, but only if it survives," is Beth Dutton answering the grief of that first scene with something that sounds exactly like something John would have said. "You miss me, then build something I would have been proud of, and do not let anything stop you until it survives." May 15th is the night, 2 episodes. Paramount Plus at midnight Pacific, which is 3 a.m. Eastern, and on Paramount Network at 8 p.m. I honestly think this premiere is going to remind every single Yellowstone fan exactly why they fell in love with this universe in the first place. Drop a comment and tell me, do you think that John Dutton moment in the first scene is going to hit you the way the trailer already did? Because I have been thinking about Beth holding that hat since the first time I saw the trailer.